my faith right now, my faith right now feels pretty quiet. Um, and this episode is kind of tough, or video. However, I break this up, it's kind of tough because, I grew up in the church since 9 years old. Didn't really start taking it seriously, I would say, until I was high school. And since then, it's always been my, my foundation. When all else fails, this never fails me. And right now, besides another tragedy that happened in my life, this is probably one of the worst ever. Because, as I said in the beginning, my faith seems really quiet right now. It feels like all I'm trying to do is the right thing. Even though I can always be better. I'm not gonna say I'm doing everything perfect, but I'm not straying. I've been worse. I've been worse in the past, and I still felt and know that God was listening to my prayers. And I still believe He is listening. But I do feel that I'm going through something. And maybe it's a test. Maybe, maybe this is a test to see, where I'm standing. Like, can I really handle this? What kind of really a character test. And when things get dark, when you're all alone, when you finish crying, you finish spiraling mentally, who do you turn to? What are you doing after? Are you just gonna give up? Am I gonna give up? Am I just gonna concede that, it is what it is without trying? It feels like, when you're in class, you're taking a test and you're really struggling to find those answers, but the teacher's walking around just quiet, and you can ask for help, but the teacher's like shaking his head or her head. It feels like that. And it's really tough when you've been a really good student and you just got thrown off, and one test is throwing you off. A test you didn't expect, a pop quiz, whatever. And so that's how it feels. I need to reflecting all this. This shows really, I always tell people, when times are great, when things are great, everybody's great to work with, everybody's great to be around, everybody's all hunky-dory, kumbaya, cool. I like to see people that when times get tough, while it gets light, when, like I said, you feel alone, you feel unheard, you feel invisible, you feel forgotten, abandoned, misunderstood. What do you do next? Because sometimes, being a man, from a man's perspective, from what I see, men, at least dads, I should say, dads don't get the clapping. We don't. Nobody claps for doing doing the hard stuff, taking some, getting the blunt of the attitudes in the house, or staying up late to clean dishes or to get things or to keep the house organized or pay the bills. It's a thankless job. I would say. And these moments show hey, are you really is this is what you wanted? Is this what you want? This is the type of test this is what you want, because this is the job. You are doing all this, you're working late, you're pretty much doing 2 jobs, minimum sleep, just enough to function, and don't nobody's gonna pat you in the back, nobody's gonna say thank you, good job. You barely hang out with your friends as it is, because you feel guilty of not being with your family, because you don't want to be that guy, because your dad wasn't there around, so you want to be around all the time now. Maybe overcompensating, maybe you're handling some things wrong, but this is where you are. And what are you gonna do? These are the moments when you're alone and nobody's looking, and it's just you and your thoughts. And I feel like at this moment it really clicked for me that this is my biggest low I felt in a long, long time. And you love it and you hate it. You love it because I realize, at least at this moment, that I still love being a dad. And for how rocky my marriage is, I still love being a husband, the idea of a lore, because I know to be a strong dad, strong husband, you got to go through these moments, these silent battles, these silent tests. You got to go through this stuff to really strengthen you. God doesn't want nothing untested. Is what I grew up always hearing, and God doesn't put you through anything that you can't handle. Is what I've always been taught, and I truly believe. And how we handle those situations shows our character. And one thing about me that I noticed from now, my past, I'm always going to be optimistic. I'm always not trying, I'm never disrespectful. I think about all sides, and I always put myself last. And that is very straining on me sometimes, because with putting myself last, I leave myself short, and sometimes I crash. Mentally I just shut down, and I'm just useless sometimes because how much I strain and think of others. And I have pros and cons. I'm way too passionate. I'm way too patient for things, issues. I'm learning all this stuff, at the bottom. And one of the driving points I keep telling people, keep telling my wife, is that I can't do everything, but I can do anything. And with that, gives me confidence. I can always adapt. I can always grow. That every situation I've been in where I felt really low, felt really weak, I always prove myself that I'm not. And that's not to say it's fair for the other person or your partner. that you're going through this. But when you love somebody, I feel, and you see change, even if it's a small change, that faith should carry you to knowing that things aren't going to be the same. I have faith, and I always believed that today's problems won't be tomorrow's problems. So say like 6 months from now, I'm going to have a whole different set of problems. And this problem that I thought was so big and so troublesome, so worrisome, it won't be like that, So even though my faith feels alone and I feel invisible and I feel abandoned, I know I'm not. I know things will get better. I know this test or moment in my life is, character development. This will make me stronger. So, what got me through it is just staying in there, one day at a time. Keep getting better, even if nobody sees it, and people, oh, blah, blah, I don't see no change. You see the change. I did, and I don't need to prove that to nobody but myself. And it showed, because like I said, a couple weeks, couple months, that's not my problem no more. That's not a problem anymore. Now I have a whole different set of problems I got to learn to master. But the point is, that is not a problem anymore. And to me, that's enough faith, enough resilience that God is still listening to me. Because I wouldn't have made it through these challenges and these things if he wasn't giving me the strength to get through them. Because all I'm doing is praying and trying my best. And I've seen people's lives where they try their best and it didn't work out. Or they fell flat on their face and they weren't able to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. Or they just let themselves go. And I've always been able to pick myself back up. I always always been better off after. And so, yeah, it's these silent battles may seem silent, but just know God is listening. He's watching to see what you do next. And how do you navigate the trenches? And so just know, God's always watching. It might feel like he's not, but he's watching. He is. So just keep that in your heart, like how I kept it in heart. And it's terrible because you feel guilty. Like doubting that God's not with me and being in church for all these years is crazy. I know I'm not perfect. I'm not a saint, but I know he hears my prayers and he's with me in my spirit and my family. So for me to feel that he's not there, that doubt really was like a slap in the face for him, I'm sure for God and for myself. It's kind of like, what am I doing? What am I thinking? Pick up the book, read the scripture. It says right there, he will not forsake you if you are a child of his. And that's what you strive to do every day. They said that the bracelet that looks stupid, a little WWJD, it's silly, it's kind of, corny, cringy, whatever you want to call it, but it's true. And that's kind of like how I try to live my life, my scenario problems. I'm like, what would Jesus do? Like, what would he do? Because he's the truth, he's the word. So if you just read his word, it's kind of like, you're taking your life and just putting it as what would Jesus do. Simple slogan, but it still hits home for me. So, that's pretty much what I got to say about this topic, about faith, about where I feel at it right now at this point. And the funny thing is, I said all this, and just know you still gotta show up. You gotta show up, especially when you have a kid. They depend on you. You can't be depressed. You can't be mad. You can't be angry. You can't be cold. You can't. You just can't. You know. I have to show up. You have to show up. Because that's what makes you a good dad. That's what makes you a good Christian. That's what makes you good person. You show up when times get tough, when you don't want to, and you get the job done. And it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to say being a dad ever gets easier, or father gets or husband gets easier. I'm not going to say that. But you still show up, because eventually you get stronger from this, and then you can become adjusted to this, and then eventually you will find, like I said, these problems that you had now won't be problems anymore. So just keep your head down, keep working. If this hits you, just know you're not alone. See you next time, guys. Peace out.